What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 college football predictions for the upcoming 2024 college football season. The Penn State Nittany Lions are up next. Penn State coming off another 10-win season last year and also coming off a New Year's Six Bowl appearance last year as well. This makes it back-to-back years for Penn State. They have made it to back-to-back New Year's Six Bowl appearances and then also back-to-back 10-win seasons as well, but once again coming up just short of getting it to the Big Ten championship. And also it seems like this team is a playoff contender every year, but they just can't really live up to the expectations either way just because of the conference they play in. But my thoughts on this team for 2024, I think they're definitely a playoff contender with a 12-team playoff coming up this year, and I also think this is a Big Ten conference championship contender as well. You look at the offensive side of the football, Drew Aller, of course, will be back at quarterback, was really consistent last year in his first year as a starter. So I think the offense will be pretty consistent. Maybe not an explosive offense, but just overall a consistent offensive team. And then defensively, they did lose some key players on that side of the football from last year, but I think the defense will be still pretty good. It's not really going to be the same defense as it was from last year, but either way, I think Penn State has a chance to be a pretty good team this upcoming season. So let's get to the schedule now here for 2024. This is the schedule here for Penn State. Again, they were 10-3 last year in 2023. So again, a back-to-back 10-win seasons here for Penn State. So let's go game by game now and give you a record prediction here for Penn State for the 2024 season. First game of the season is a big one here on the road at West Virginia on August 31st. So we have the Big 12 versus the Big 10 here in a non-conference game. This is a rematch from last year, of course. I think this will be a closer game than it was from last season. West Virginia definitely was a very big surprise last year, coming off a 9-4 season. I think West Virginia is going to be a top 25 team. I'm not really high on West Virginia. I'm not really saying they're going to be a playoff contender. I am high on them, but I'm just not really high on them. I think Penn State going into this game, it's going to be a very tough one. They're going to still have the talented team and everything, but I think West Virginia will be ready for this one. They're definitely out for revenge in this game, and I think the West Virginia crowd's going to be fired up. But my gut feeling was telling me to go with West Virginia just because it's on the road in a very tough environment. But I think Penn State, I like their talented roster just a little bit more. I think Penn State will be ready for this one. They get off to a slow start. I think the first half is a low-scoring type game. Maybe Penn State does pull away in the second half, but I think this game probably goes into the fourth quarter. But at the end of the day, I do like Penn State here. I like their roster just a little bit more, and I think they definitely have a more talented roster than West Virginia does. So I'm going to choose Penn State here to knock off West Virginia in the season opener. I know that's a game that, potentially that Penn State can lose, but again, I think Penn State definitely is the more talented team and definitely the more talented roster. But again, I think West Virginia is definitely a top 25 team. They're also definitely a dark horse contender in the Big 12 this upcoming season. So I got Penn State starting out 1-0, and then they take care of business against Bowling Green and Kent State, so that puts their record here at 3-0. They actually get their first bye week here early in the season before playing Kent State here. I think that's a really weird spot for a bye week here for Penn State, but either way, I got them taking care of business in both of those games, again against Bowling Green and Kent State. And then they open up Big Ten play here against Illinois at home on September 28th. I don't really know how good Illinois is going to be this year. I don't really know how good they're going to be honest. I think they'll definitely maybe be a lot more better than they were from last year. They did miss out on a bowl game, but playing at home, I think Penn State definitely should take care of business in this one. I think Penn State clearly is the more talented team, and I think they'll take care of business and they win against Illinois fairly easily. So that puts their record now at 4-0. Next game is at home against UCLA on October 5th. A newcomer, of course, coming up in the Big Ten this season. UCLA going with a different coaching change. Deshaun Foster now taking over down there. Penn State, this is a home game for them. I do expect, kind of like the same outcome to go against Illinois. Like the Illinois game, I think it will be a game where Penn State probably will win fairly easily. I think Penn State definitely is is the more talented team. They win this one fairly easily. I don't really know how good UCLA is going to be this year just because of the new head coach and everything, but I think Penn State does beat them fairly easily, and that puts their record here at 5-0. Next game is on the road here at USC on October 12th, so this will be the first Big Ten road game for Penn State. USC, wasn't really that great last year. Defensively, I do have a lot of concerns there about the defense. The defense has not been really good in the last couple years since Lincoln Riley has been there. I think the offense is really going to be good, though. I mean, they do have a new quarterback and everything, but the offense is overall going to be very explosive. This will be a very tough test here for Penn State, but, I think defensively with the problems that USC is having, I think Penn State's offense can score some points in this game, but I think USC is going to be pretty fired up for this one. It's definitely maybe like a top 25 showdown, and it's definitely one of those trap games on the road. It's also the first official road game in the Big Ten for Penn State, but, my gut feeling was telling me to go with USC just because it's a tough game to play on the road, but I think Penn State definitely is more the talented team here. Just like in that West Virginia game, it's probably like, maybe not like a low-scoring type game. It could be a shootout here, but I like Penn State's roster just a little bit more than USC's, and I think Penn State does go on the road here and survives a close one here against USC on October 12th. So that puts their record now at 6-0, and then they get a bye week right before playing a road game against Wisconsin on October 26th. Tough back-to-back road games here with USC and Wisconsin, but they do get a bye week in between some of these road games. Wisconsin, I think, is going to be a really good team this year. They have a veteran roster coming back this season. Luke Fickell, of course, his second year there. I think this will be a tricky game more than the USC game. I think Wisconsin's defense is going to be the difference in this one. This is definitely one of those trap games and definitely one of those upset alert type games. This is also potentially a top 25 matchup as well. This is one of those trap games and definitely one of those tough games to call. I think Wisconsin has a good enough roster to compete in this game. So with that being said, I think I'm going to go with the upset here. I think Wisconsin gives Penn State their first loss of the season. So that puts Penn State's record here at 6-1. And then after that, it's the home game against Ohio State on November 2nd. I've already done my Ohio State video a couple weeks ago, and I did choose the Buckeyes to win this game. I think Ohio State just definitely has the more talented roster. But I think this game will be very competitive. I don't think, Penn State was really focused on that Wisconsin game. I think they were definitely overlooking Wisconsin and definitely looking ahead to the Ohio State game. That's the reason why I'm going with the loss there for Penn State on the road at Wisconsin. But I think they'll be ready for Ohio State. I think it will be a competitive game. I think the Penn State fans will be fired up for this one, but I just don't think it will be enough. I think Ohio State, just again, with all the transfers that they have coming in and definitely the talented roster that they're going to have this year, I think the Buckeyes win this one fairly, not fairly easily, but just in a really close competitive ball game, and I think Ohio State does give Penn State their second loss here of the season. So that's back-to-back losses there for Penn State. Next, they play Washington here at home on November 9th. I think Penn State gets a bounce-back win here. I don't really know what to expect here from Washington this year. This is also their first year in the Big Ten, but they're going to have a brand new roster, so I think Penn State, they win this one fairly easily just because they're playing at home. Next game is on the road here at Purdue on November 16th. I don't really know how good Purdue is going to be. I mean, I think they'll be a little bit more competitive this year than they were from last season. Obviously, last year was definitely a step back for them, but I think Penn State will win this one fairly easily, even though it's on the road. So I think Penn State gets 2 straight wins after that Washington win, and they also beat Purdue here on the road. So that puts their record now at 8-2, and the next game is on the road here at Minnesota on November 23rd. I think Minnesota will definitely be a lot better this year. This is a team that really, at 5-7, this is one of the most consistent teams in the Big Ten, over the years. I think they'll be a lot better this year. They have a lot of veteran players coming back. This is also, just like the Wisconsin game, this is definitely one of those trap games here. In the later part of November, this is one of those upset alert type games as well. I think Minnesota might have a chance to be a top 25 team this year, but this one's on the road. This is a veteran Minnesota team. This will be a tough one here to call. So with that being said, I think Minnesota with a veteran experience and definitely playing at home, I think it will be enough to pull off an upset here in this one. So I'm going to go with the upset here, and I think Minnesota gives Penn State their 3rd loss of the season. I was kind of back and forth on that game. My gut feeling was telling me to go with Penn State State here, but I decided to go with Minnesota here just because of the veteran team and everything, and also Wisconsin. It's kind of like the same thing. They do have a veteran roster, and then, of course, Minnesota has a veteran roster as well. And those two games are on the road. That's the reason why they were so tough to call. So I got Penn State's now record at 8-3, and then the final game of the season is at home against Maryland on November 30th. So I think Penn State probably will take care of business in this one. I don't really think Maryland's going to be the same team as they were, for the last few years in the Big Ten. Maybe they still can make it to a bowl game, but, Penn State is playing at home in this one. They're going to come out fired up in this one just after a loss to Minnesota, and I think Penn State does take care of business here, or actually Penn State takes care of business here in this one, and I think they do defeat Maryland here in the final game of the regular season. So my official prediction here for Penn State is 9-3 for 2024. These three losses. Ohio State is definitely a winnable game for Penn State. Maybe they go 10-2, but if they win one of those road games against Wisconsin and Minnesota, they can definitely go 11-1. I don't really see them going 11-1 though. And don't sleep on that West Virginia game. That West Virginia game is definitely a game that you don't want to sleep on if you're Penn State as well. If they go 8-4, maybe 7-5, that would definitely be a disappointment here for Penn State. A team that's coming off a 10-win season last year, but 9-3 is my prediction here for Penn State for 2024. So let me guys know what you think about this Penn State team down in the comments below. What do you think their record will be in 2024? Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.